We don't have to be formal and stuff. People who seen a lot of our videos know.
Keep going, brother.
We don't have to be formal at all on my videos and stuff. You know, this ain't Channel 12. Anyway, the temple of Biblium El Maluk at the temple of Ramesses the Fifth, but it's Ramesses the First, Seti I, but also in Biblium El Maluk, Ramesses the Fifth, you have this stuff. Now this is very interesting here because we know that the first Holy Land that the first Holy Land before there was ever any Israel was a Holy Land in ancient Kemet called Abydos. And in Abydos, there's a temple called the Temple of Seti I, built by Ramesses II for his father that had just died, Ramesses I, Seti I. Ramesses II built this temple at Abydos at the first Holy Land when he was about 22 or something like that. It is one of the most beautiful preserved temples in Kemet, whereas the bas reliefs in the actual temple, other than the engravings in the other temples, was raised. So in actuality, you could feel it, and it was actually raised off of the wall. And it's done in some of the most beautiful paint, and it's one of the most beautiful temples preserved on the inside. And it's very interesting about this temple. They never show this temple in Kemet, in Egypt. You never see this temple. It's one of the temples that they never show, and they always show all the temple of Edfu, the temple of Luxor, the temple of Karnak, the temple of Dendera, the temple of Isis, the temple of Esna. You see what I'm saying? They always show these temples in most books. They don't really show a lot of temples on TV, not unless they're trying to exploit something. Because to me, the temples are some of the greatest architecture in the world. You saw building a pyramid. Try building an Egyptian temple. But one temple that they never ever show, and that is the temple of Seti I at Abydos. I'm collecting Kamite or Egyptian artifacts and Egyptian pictures from the late 80s and the late 80s and the early 90s. And other than Dr. Ben's books, Abasimbel to Giza, I don't find a lot of pictures of this temple. Now I find literally, other than Seti's book, which is a white woman who spent her whole life at the temple of Seti I and in that area. And you can also get a documentary on her, and National Geographic did a thing called Egypt, the Eternal Quest. They did it in 1982. They still show it on PBS every now and then. But outside of that little thing with Seti, and outside of Dr. Ben's book, who just so happens to be a black man, you don't get no pictures of Seti I. Now I got two pictures of Seti I, and it's very interesting. I get a picture and a painting, a real nice watercolor done in the late 1800s, when they first started traveling to Kemet. Late 1800s to mid 1800s. I get this beautiful preserved temple, and they quote that it's one of the most preserved temples in Kemet, Egypt. I don't get any more pictures of this mysterious picture that I have in my library at home again. The next time I get a picture, is 1989, and the temple is completely torn apart and reassembled, and it looks nothing like the original temple in the 19th century painting. Even Seti I, Seti, by the time she said she gets there in the 1920s or the 1930s, this white woman, she said the temple was completely demolished. And she spends her whole life with him literally trying to put this temple back together. By 1982, this temple is put back together, but it looks entirely different from the temple that I got in the 19th century drawing. And I get one picture, a color picture in 1989. It's an entirely different temple, and even the temple that Dr. Ben visits in the late 80s and in the early 90s is an entirely different temple than the one from the late 1800s, or mid to late 1800s. That meant that there was something in that temple that they saw, and they saw it earlier because Champollion, who is supposed to be the author of, who's supposed to be the person that actually deciphered hieroglyphics, which is a lie. Come to find it, there was a black man, here he goes again, there was a black man at the University of Chicago that just looked at the hieroglyphics and just knew it based on genetic observation, a genetic memory bank. And he was the one that translated the majority of that. As usual, there's another black man whose story never gets out, and Champollion gets the credit. But nevertheless, Champollion goes to Hemmitt right after hieroglyphics has been translated. He goes to Egypt, sets sail to Egypt, and he writes 16 letters back to Champollion the Elder, which is his oldest brother. And when he gets to the temple of Seti I, he is very upset in his letters about what he found about the origin of the race, the white race. And in this, they talk about this temple of Seti I, they talk about there's 4 races of men. These are the 4 races of men. The 4 races of men. This one down here is suggesting the Tamahu from ancient Egypt. The Tamahu, which is the white man. Now, this picture of the 4 races of men is found in a book, Ignatius Donnelly's book. One of the few people that actually printed the picture. Ignatius Donnelly's book, Atlantis, the Antediluvian World. Antediluvian World. This picture here I put under the bottom is found in Albert Churchward's book, Signs and Symbols of Primordial Man. But nevertheless, this is the actual pictures that is explained by Gerald Massey, who is indicating what Champollion saw when he wrote back to his oldest brother, Champollion the Elder. And it says, the Egyptians identified themselves on the monuments as the Root, R-O-U-T. A pictorial representation is found at the tomb of Seti I, and there are 4 races of people arranged in the groups of 4 men each. Here is the picture of the 4 men. Red, yellow, black, and white. Well, we'll go into that. 4 men each. These are the Nashi, Nashi, N-A-H-S-I, Negroes. The Hemmu, men of a light brown hue, with blue eyes and hair in a bag. And the Tamahu, which are the fair Europeans. And the Root, who are the Egyptians, are the Root, who are the Egyptians. So your Nasi, your Negroes, and your Root are the Egyptians. This is the 4 races of men: the Hemmu, the Tamahu, the Nasi, and the Ruti. So we know that the Nasi and the Root or the Ruti are the ancient types: East African, West African. These are the typical groups, are not meant merely for conquered races, as may be gathered from significance of their names. The Tamahu are the white, light-complected people. In the Egyptian word, Tama means people and created, who are the created white, light, and ivory. So Tama means people and created. Who means, white, light, and ivory. The Tama who means the created white people. Well, who created them? The Nam is black ink. The Net is blackbird. The Shu is a person of birth, which means the original birth of the original people. The Nashim it was one black born, or the Egyptian phrase, the black egg from the egg, Shu. You see, from the egg, Shu. So, in so many words, the Ruti and the Nashi, or the Nasi, are the original races. Goes on to say that the Ruti and the Nasi